style. But welcome to our Sunday evening webinar.
That was a challenge. Wow.
Now, well, we like to keep people up with the times, Janey, so see this all as a positive. Could you imagine?
Absolutely, yeah.
Could you imagine doing this technology with a hangover?
Oh, don't even think about it. No. No, definitely not.
So, Janey, lots of people won't know who you are in the community, so I have to remember this, that I know who you are. But actually, you're quite showbiz, aren't you? Tell us a bit about your showbiz career.
No, I don't know if I'm very showbiz anymore. Maybe I was once. I was a singer for many years. So I probably most famously worked with George Michael and Wham. I was backing singer, and various other bits of pop music, basically, for lots of years. And I've worked in radio for, oh my goodness, probably almost 25 years, which is really scary. And for the last 19 years, amazingly, I only know because my son was born when I started. I've been on radio too. So so I'm a few people know me as a radio presenter and author, and I write. So that's a pottery.
And you've got a website about healthy living as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so my first book was called Imperfectly Natural Woman. That was a bestseller 12 years ago. And the reason I say that is because I was just kind of a little bit ahead of my time, really, in a way. I was writing about kale before it had its own publicist, and a lot of the stuff I was talking about, everybody's talking about now. At the time, everyone thought I was nuts. So that was the first book, and then that led to the recommendations website, imperfectlynatural.com, and that's what I still run. And I've written various other books along the way, always to do with holistic living. I take the approach that I look at the kind of natural alternative to everything, but the imperfectly natural bit is really important, because obviously I don't get everything right, and I don't really expect anyone else to.
So saying that, so all these years you've been writing about holistic and health and bloody kale, and yet you've only just given up drinking.
Yeah, it's incredible.
What's that about? You're a woman who should know everything about health.
Of course, and absolutely right. And that's where the imperfectly natural bit, allowed me what I thought was my treat, because I was perfectly happy to say to people, I eat well and I don't use any chemicals in my skincare and all the rest of it, but I love my glass of wine. And I thought that was very cool, because of course that's what everybody does, and it's not till you realize that actually it isn't a treat at all. It's incredible. The other really interesting thing for me is that over the years, because of the work that I do as a journalist, I write lots of magazine articles as well. I've had the pleasure, I suppose, of testing out just about every single therapy going. So, everything from, sometimes I joke if I'm giving a talk, and I'll say, I've had, kinesiology, I've had reflexology, I've had Reiki, I've had, TFT, EFT, ABC, I've had everything, literally everything. And towards the end of my drinking days, as it were, I remember saying to therapists, there is something kind of not quite right. And actually, I'm going to come clean and admit that I think I probably drink too much. And never once in years and years and years did anyone ever say, yeah, you're right, you need to quit that stuff, never. So because they're drinking as well, probably.
Of course. And we don't like to tell people what to do, and in some respects.
Well, that's true. When
you've gone to somebody for Reiki to relax or anything else, nobody then wants to pry too deeply. And I guess that's our natural British reserve as well. We're not going to call you out on it, because we're all imperfect as well. And that's what I like about, even when you quit drinking, the world doesn't become perfect either.
Absolutely. Yeah, because you usually turn into a sugar head then, don't you?
Yeah, for a little while.
To most of us for a bit, yeah.
I may have eaten
a whole bucket. Thing helps.
May have eaten a whole bucket of fruit pastels today, but anyway.
Yeah.
So Janey, what made you make the decision to then finally explore your drinking, and what were the first steps that you took?
Well, so I have, like many people, I've had little spells of moderating, if you like, over the years. And it's quite interesting, really, now I think back, because Jason Vale is a really good friend of mine. And I read Jason's book, Kick the Drink Easily, the first time around before it was republished, as it were, because the book's been around a lot of years. And I read that book probably, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, something like that. Yeah, it would have been maybe 8 years ago, the first version of Kick the Drink Easily, which was called something else. But anyway, same book pretty much. And that book changed my relationship with alcohol for a bit. So it definitely did the mindset thing. I write about this in one of the books, the last book I wrote, Look Great Naturally Without Ditching the Lipstick. I have a whole chapter on alcohol that I wrote as a result of taking in what Jason's book had said. And I think for a while, what I was doing without realizing the term was I was drinking mindfully. So I was practicing mindful drinking for quite a long time, a good few months, probably, maybe 8-9 months.
And what did that look like for you? Because, if you're drinking mindfully, you have to know what it is that you're mindfully doing.
Yeah.
What were your rules? Did you have rules?
It wasn't terribly structured. No, it was just that I'd read Jason's book. I'd got the mindset bit, that alcohol is bad, and not really a treat. And I'd got enough of it to allow me to, I don't think my rules were tremendously set. I didn't do terribly well at it, but I basically had something along the lines of don't drink in the week, you can drink at weekends, that kind of thing. And it went on reasonably well for a period of time until real life kind of kicked in, and I had stress, and we moved house, and then we moved somewhere where there was a nice deli around the corner, and the kids were young, and I had tons of stuff going on, about 3-4 jobs and a business to run and young kids. And suddenly it was a case of, I need me time. I need to feel grown up again. And so I slipped back into it. I now know, all these years on, that what was different to this time was that although I'd kind of got a little bit of the mindset stuff, I hadn't done anything at all to integrate it into how my life was going to look. And the really important bit, I hadn't grasped that anyone else felt this way. I hadn't got any kind of support or community, or couldn't imagine any kind of social life other than just choosing not to drink. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So your moderation phase worked as long as there weren't any curveballs, and you did it without much of a plan.
I did. And I also did it because I felt I ought to do it, because alcohol is bad and I want to be good. So it really was coming from that place of sort of willpower, and I really must try.
It was a you should rather than you want.
Absolutely. And I certainly had no concept of that I have now of actually, you know what, life is so much better. It was just a little bit like, when you try and go on a diet and you just tell yourself, I absolutely mustn't eat anything today. And then if somebody upsets you, by 5 o'clock, you've had 3 packs of Jaffa cakes. It's trying to force that willpower without really telling your subconscious mind why you're doing it. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I'm probing around that really, because actually the truth is whether you're moderating or going alcohol free or taking a break right now, you have to have a commitment to it beyond the fact that society tells you that you should do something to
Absolutely.
be a bit healthier. You have to understand why you're doing something. So when I do a WOOP with people, which is wish, outcome, obstacle, plan, I'm really keen that people focus on the outcome, which is, yes, you might want to take a month off drinking, or you might want to moderate, but why? What is it you want to get out of it, other than feeling like that should be the thing that's on your tick list because we all know it's bad for you? Actually, what is it you want? Do you want to stop drunk texting? Do you want to have better relationships? Do you want to be more present at the weekend? All those things. So I'm interested in that you can recognise that switch in personal desire, really.
Yeah, I really can. I think I had the desire that the desire to give up drinking for a long time. That's, as I mentioned, I asked various therapists if I felt brave enough, I would raise it at the end of a session. You know, I'd usually say, oh, and by the way, you know, have you got any suggestions for me? And so I know that I had the desire. I know that I knew that I needed to stop, but it felt like a scary thing that I couldn't do. And when time after time after time, the answer was, well, you don't need to, you're fine, because I was functioning completely, absolutely fine. Nobody had shown me, or I had nothing to gauge that life was better. So I didn't really have a good enough motive, if you know what I mean, because everyone, even health professionals, were regularly telling me, well, it's fine as long as you're not massively overdoing it. But how does anyone measure that? Everyone lies about how much they drink.
And also,
it's
really about how you feel.
Exactly.
And that can't be measured by anyone else but you.
That's exactly it. And that was the thing. When I started to get the kind of waking up at 3 a.m. thing, you know, hating myself, I knew something had to change. But that went on for months and months and months. Because as anybody who's in that situation knows, by 5 o'clock the next afternoon, it's like, oh, you know,
feel great.
Quite fancy a glass of wine. And then, as I say, I'd go and see health professional after health professional, whether regular or alternative, and every single time it was exactly the same thing. Well, you don't seem to have a problem. You're going to work. You're not drinking and driving. You're not. What's the problem? You look fine. You know you've got no health issues. You know, what I now know is that, you know, it's a spectrum, isn't it? It's a real spectrum. I didn't know that. I knew I wasn't, you know, rock bottom, but you know, I've learned so much since. But I think well, I haven't even told you what really changed. So here's what really changed.
That was my next question to you.
Yeah.
So you had done the moderating bit. You had fallen off the moderating bit.
Yeah.
You'd had a long time just drinking as you were. So what changed? About a year ago, really?
Yeah. So December the 31st, 2017. Yeah, 2017. No, 30th actually. I did it the day before New Year's Eve. So December the 30th. I work on the radio, and we interview lots of celebs and authors. And we knew that we were going to be interviewing on January the 2nd, I think it was, 2018, Claire Pooley, because she just brought out the Sober Diaries.
Lovely Claire
Pooley, yeah, who features on my podcast this week. She's so lovely. Anyway, so she was bringing out her hardback called The Sober Diaries, of course. And it's really interesting because with the work that I do with Steve at the BBC, we very rarely get the books very far in advance. We would get them, you might get them the day before or 2 days if you're lucky, so you get a chance to have a sense of the book. You can't always read every bit of the book because it's just the way it is. But because the interview was either 2nd or 3rd of January, I was given the book before Christmas. So there I was at Christmas time with this book, The Sober Diaries, in my hot little hands. And I literally could feel my heart beating. I thought, I'm going to read this. Obviously, I had to read it because I knew we were going to interview her. And I had a really strong sense that something was going to change. So I read the book off and on over Christmas. I didn't have a lot of time. You know, I had a big family Christmas. And what I got from that book was, of course, that Claire was almost exactly the same as me. It was practically like we'd swap lives in terms of, you know, the not feeling the sense that we weren't always there for our kids, and all of this stuff really, really, really related to me. The struggle she went through, which I could absolutely relate to, but most importantly, how she came out of it and the joy she found at the end, you know, and the fact that life was better. I don't think I'd ever read that before. I also got from her book the importance of finding like-minded people. I had no idea that there's a world out there. I didn't know it was a thing. It's a thing. You know, you've made it a thing. And I had no idea it was a thing. I thought, you know, Jason Vale had written about mindset and NLP, and I'd seen one or two other books around, but I hadn't really read. I'd seen a couple of memoirs, but I had no idea it was a thing. And it just absolutely got me. And I thought, okay, I'm going to at least try.
I'm going to take a step back, because what's really interesting is because Jason Vale's book is very much around the NLP.
Yeah,
absolutely
very NLP,
blast you with some very factual stuff.
Yeah.
scare you a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then what you've got is Claire Pooley's story, which is a personal story where you've got some stuff you can identify with, but also how you might live life on the other side, which is really important. So really important. There is no one book that will probably switch your brain, but reading lots of different books and immersing yourself in the subject is really important.
That was massive for me. That was the really, really big change. And I do actually think that if I'd stopped at Claire's book, I probably would have gone back. If I hadn't have picked up on the stuff that Claire said in there about Club Soda, you know, she mentions Club Soda in the book, she mentions various other podcasts. And if I hadn't got the sense from the book that there was a community, that there were other people that felt just like me, you know, we're not talking AA meetings, we're not talking rock bottom. There were lots and lots of people at all different, you know, ends of the spectrum. Getting the sense of that was what made the difference. If I'd only read Claire's book, I probably would have caved. I would have caved probably a couple of weeks in, because I felt really miserable. Really. So
when did you join Club Soda? Out of interest, I can probably look, but you know, I haven't.
Yeah, I think I got about 3 or 4 weeks in. So I was around about this time last year. So I seem to remember around about 20th of January. And I seem to remember actually emailing Claire. She was really sweet. And because I told her when she came in that I'd given up. I'd only given up for about 5 days, but
it's okay. That's some accountability.
She was pleased for me. Yeah, she was pleased for me. And so she said, look, email me. And then after, I think it's about 3 weeks, I did email her and I just said, you know, I'm really miserable, and I feel absolutely, I don't actually know I'm at Anne anymore. I was going through one of those. You don't realize that until you know, we want to share with everybody how wonderful it is, but by the same token, we do need to share that actually it's really tough at the beginning. And that's when she said, you need to either you need support for yourself, or at the very least, you need to check in and see there's other people feeling this. So, you know, read some blogs, join Club Soda. You don't have to post anything, but just get yourself involved somehow. So I think it was around that time, around the end of January. I didn't post anything. I wasn't brave enough to do that. But I just started lurking. I also started listening to some podcasts by Belle, Tired of Thinking About Drinking, which I loved. And of course, I then bought more books. So I read The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, Catherine Gray. And I just loved that book, because again, that just cemented this whole thing of actually this is worth doing, and you just got to push through, and it gives you a reason to push through. So it's that outcome you're talking about. I wanted what they had.
And I'm really excited that you talk about the fact that it's not just this constant building on more and more joy about being sober. You were probably going through some mild withdrawal symptoms, and even without that, you're beginning to question your identity, because so much, it was a bit like me, so much of my identity was tied up between Laura could make a great joke about gin and tonic, Laura was always available for drink, and so it throws up lots of issues.
Yeah, it really, really does. I mean, I was lucky enough, after about a month, I suddenly realized, hold on a minute, you know, all this stuff I know about holistic living, I'm not doing any of this. What the hell? So I reminded myself of the importance of doing that. So I saw a nutritionist, and I'm really glad I did. And that's one of the things that I really want to do more of moving forward, is trying to inspire people to remember to put back the good stuff. You know, you might become a sugarhead for a bit. Well, so be it. But you can't forget that actually your body is all recalibrating and all sorts of stuff's going on. And most people do need different vitamins and different minerals, and maybe have a fresh juice or whatever it is. And so I started to look after myself. That, again, this is something that I'm really hot on at the moment, is this whole self-care thing. I hadn't been looking after myself very well, not at all. I just don't think you do. When your mind's focused on having a glass of wine, you don't think about a lot else. So it was getting back to that started to make the difference. And you're absolutely right. It was the emotional well-being thing. I really wasn't expecting to feel quite as odd. I felt odd. I wasn't quite sure who I was. You know, I think Catherine Gray talks about the Russian doll thing, doesn't she? How you like those little painted Russian dolls, and you've had this one on the outside, and then all of a sudden you're stripping away the others, and eventually,
it's like,
you know.
well, you get somewhere, but that carries on. Actually, I call it like
Yeah.
100 little epiphanies,
Yeah.
and even now, 6.5 years on, I'm
Wow.
still reaping the benefits of having given up drinking.
Wow.
And
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear.
well, only because you give yourself the space to
Yeah.
then deal with other things that are on your agenda.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and what I'm really passionate about, the fact that everything doesn't have to be perfect all at once. It's
Yeah.
a continual progress. It's a continual progress. The same as, you know, changing your drinking. You build on that. You know, what you feel like in month 1 isn't the same as what you feel like in month 2. Isn't the same as you feel in month 3. And so don't be put off if you're feeling a bit crap in month 1,
Yeah.
because there's still more to come.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
you might eat sugar in month 2, but you might hit the salmon in month 3, and
Yeah.
you don't have to do the same thing and it be like this forever. You're doing some things temporarily, and you'll be building some habits that are good forever, so that's okay.
Yeah, it totally is. And I think, you know, the first about 3 weeks, as I say, I didn't get the support I needed. If I could go back and do my time again, as it were, which I won't be doing,
Good.
I would put the support in place right from the beginning. So I think that's such a top tip, is find that support, because there's so much of it out there, so much of it. And if it hadn't been for Claire, you know, saying to me, just go join Club Soda, listen to these podcasts, you know, become part of this community, even if you lurk. I think that's really important, because the minute you start to see that other people are at different stages, and of course we're not all the same, but you start to get a sense of, okay, I mean, one thing for me was I fully expected to have lost 2 stone and have loads of energy and be looking incredible within 4 weeks. And I was absolutely gutted that, if anything, I looked worse. You know, I felt really
Did you have
kind
spots?
I did, you know, all that kind of stuff. I felt really drab, and I didn't get any of that sparkliness. I didn't have any energy. I couldn't, you know, it was literally a PJs at 9 o'clock job, you know. But then I read that other people were like that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not everybody does lose weight, certainly not in the first few months. And once I could calm down about all of that and just see that there were other people, and then it's different for everyone, it really, really helped me to recognise, just hang on in there. I mean, there were little changes that were good. You know, I'm not saying everything was miserable, but the positives build. And also, you know, the other little thing was having someone to share the fact that when I'd done my first 30 days, I emailed Claire, you know. I was so proud of myself, and, you know, she sort of sent me a virtual hug, and but everyone, you know, that's why Club Soda's there, you know, and that's what's so fabulous. And as you should pat yourself on the back, you know.
Well, as knowing that that everyone's a bit different, what Club Soda does is make you realise how much we are the same.
Exactly.
So you can make excuses about how different your life is. Oh, but I've got to get the kids to bed. Oh, I've got a busy job. Oh, I work in an industry where everyone drinks so much. I've not met anyone who doesn't tell me that they work in an industry where they don't drink too much. You begin to realise that all of those things that you think makes you a precious snowflake, which are reasons why you can't change your drinking, are actually just excuses that your mind's giving you, and you just need to bat them away and go, you know what? I'm not that much different. These triggers, these feelings we get, that sense of discomfort is the same for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what, immersing yourself in all the books and the podcasts, that's what really, really helps. I mean, I think I've probably read every book there is, actually. I was thinking about bringing my stash down in front of the phone. I've absolutely, I mean, I've read them all, and I just absolutely love them. I get something different from all of the books, really. You know, and then the Club Soda, just to read where different, I mean, I remember when I first read that someone had relapsed, you know, gone back to day 1, whatever you want to call it. I remember thinking, wow, that's the warning right there for me, you know. And people were so supportive, and it's just an amazing resource, and it's just a real, I think, absolute top tip for people. You know, just don't try and do this on your own, even if you're not brave enough to necessarily post. I think immersing yourself, that's the massive difference for me. from other times when
Mercy.
I've tried to give up. It's absolutely huge. Well, that and the fact that I've suddenly discovered that there is an unexpected joy of being sober. Best
Well, I
title
think
ever.
immersing yourself is basically building confidence. So you're developing the skills and knowledge you need to be more confident about the fact that you can achieve this. And the more confident you are, the more likely you are to achieve. So in terms of behavior change and self-efficacy, that's where it all comes from. And part of me feels like I talk to people about the fact that the impact of alcohol on you is cumulative. It's not about those 3-day hangovers.
No,
it's
absolutely.
about 25 years of drinking and the way it's rewired your brain. And so unpicking that does take time, but also doing good things to yourself is also cumulative in how it impacts on you. So whether you take up meditation or yoga or reading, or for me, I took up TV recently, you know, the impacts of that relaxation is also cumulative, but we often don't realize we still need to do it quite a bit in order to reap those benefits. And so, you know, giving up drinking, the benefits do come. They may be lots of tiny little ones. Just not making a fool of yourself in front of people may just be that biggest joy for you, and that's okay. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think in the beginning, it's whatever works for you. And I know we spoke about this a lot at the Mindful Drinking Festival, but you know, if it means if to protect your sobriety, if you like, that means, you know, saying no to something you don't want to go to, well, so be it. You know, that's the most important thing. Just don't drink. Just don't drink. Just whatever it takes, just don't drink. So if you don't want to go to a party, don't drink.
Yeah.
If you want to go to bed, fine.
Yeah, Anna's saying she's wrapping herself in cotton wool right now to protect her sobriety, and that's absolutely right. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be like that forever. I call it anyway for the whole of the rest of your life, treating yourself with consent. If you don't want to be somewhere, then go home. Rather than force yourself to be at things you're not enjoying.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying as a person to not see when people make those choices for themselves as that being a slight on me, and saying, that person's made a decision that's right for them today, and they're not coming along to a club soda social, and that's absolutely fine.
That's for them.
Not that
Absolutely.
means you can't come along to club soda socials, everyone. I really want you to come along. Because actually, that's one of the things I wanted to touch on with you, because you went to a club soda social run by Roz, didn't you?
God, I did. I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. Yeah, but it was great. You know, everyone was really quite normal. There was no one with green heads at all. It's funny. You know, the first time you go, it's terrifying. But when you find out that other people who are not drinking are also normal, wow, I can do this, you know. Yeah, I would highly recommend it.
Meeting people face to face. Meeting online is amazing. I'm beginning to realize and see the volume of people, that volume. If we were to stick everyone in a room with that volume of people, they would just disintegrate as a thing. So the socials, which are organized by members and quite small, does allow you to meet people. And I call it the superfood of behavior change, which is meeting other people in real life. And suddenly your connection is much stronger. And so, you know, you'd be terrified if you had to now say to Kathy or Roz or any of the people that were at that, you know, actually I've started drinking again. It really cements your commitment.
It really does. It really does. And also, you know, I know that when Claire started writing her blog, you know, the fact that she became accountable, and it's a really important thing. I think that's another part of being part of a community, not, you know, whether you've met them or whether you're online. That sense of accountability is I think it's really important to make sure you've got that for yourself. And as we've already been saying, it's all about self-care. And I think treating yourself to a really nice meal or whatever it is, with other people who feel the same way, it's definitely an act of kindness for yourself.
Yeah, and you're practicing a new behavior in a familiar setting.
Yeah.
So you're going to a meal, you're meeting strangers, all of those things you would have drunk to deal with. Oh my God, strangers! I need to drink alcohol to meet them. Actually, meeting new people is one of the most wonderful things you can do in the world. And we've reduced it to something we can only do when we're half cut.
That's right, absolutely.
I
also on my birthday, when I was in March, when I was 3 months, and it was exactly my 3-month date, I went to Morning Gloryville, which was just so cool. Oh man, that was so good. I forced a friend to come with me who does drink. She was so sweet. She came with me anyway. And it was just that was really amazing.
It's amazing that you can fit so much much into your time when you're not drinking as well. So you can go and do that, and you could love it, you could hate it, doesn't matter. It was an experience. Right, what next?
Yeah.
I feel there's a bit of that about
I
it.
think it's interesting. A lot of people find, you know, as we know from Club Soda, they kind of develop new hobbies, and they find suddenly there's all this time, because it is time consuming. I mean, for me, I didn't know whether it would free up time. But actually, when I think back, I spent a lot of time thinking about drinking, which of course is Belle's title, isn't it? Tired of thinking about drinking. You do spend a lot of time thinking about it, planning it, and worrying about it. So,
oh yes,
yeah, when you give that, when that's gone, yeah, it is amazing what it can free up for you, actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
and you know, the other thing is that, sorry, just picking up on that, the other thing that I've found really, really incredible is that you become brave. You get a confidence, a different kind of confidence, I think, when you don't, you know, when you've given up. That's a really amazing thing. We've seen people in Club Soda, and you just start to see it, but people just kind of blossom, and they become brave enough to do things that they've probably always wanted to do, but just didn't feel possible before.
Yeah, I think it's also that bravery to say what's right for you.
Yeah,
the more confident
definitely.
you are in your sobriety, the better that becomes. So you're over a year now. So what does over a year feel like?
It's amazing. It's actually amazing, and I think I really am in that space of it gets better and better. I think I didn't want it to be this way. I would have liked to have said that 6 months is enough to feel completely changed, but actually I think it's a year. I think it's a year. You need a year, if you know what I mean, before you really kind of, for me, a year has really made that massive change. I can now talk about it for starters. I couldn't really before. That's, you know, something that I spoke about at the Mindful Drinking Festival, that the sense of shame that you feel is just bonkers, absolutely bonkers. But it's very, very real, and it went on for a long time with me, a long time. So I didn't really tell anyone.
And you're a woman who writes about wellness, and you couldn't tell them about the one greatest wellness act you've done.
No, couldn't do it. Really bizarre.
Have you outed yourself now to your friends, or?
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've completely been there, done it, got the T-shirt now, because I'm out there writing about it. I've just launched a podcast, which for me is huge, because I've never done a podcast before, and then I've been in radio all these years, never done a podcast, and all of a sudden I pop up with a podcast about, called Alcohol Free Life. So, crikey, I'm really out, and it's terrifying, actually, but it's only terrifying in a public persona kind of way. But I'm no longer afraid of telling anybody. I don't know why I was. It's bonkers. I can't get my head around it, but I do know that an awful lot of people feel that way. Something very funny was that Mother's Day last year, so that's halfway through March, right? My two older teenage boys, I've got 4 kids. My 2 older teenage boys bought me a bottle of wine for Mother's Day. I'm like, what? I mean, I hadn't got the heart to really say anything.
Guys!
They hadn't noticed. They actually hadn't noticed. It's incredible.
So you're there worrying about it all, whether people will notice and what they say, and your 2 sons hadn't noticed.
Yeah. Because they're in a world of their own. They don't care. I mean, in a way, one bit of me was really fed up. I thought, but hold on a minute, how can you not have noticed that I'm a much nicer person and I'm there to collect you at the end of an evening? Amazing they hadn't forgotten that bit, what they had. And the other bit of me was, I thought, well, well done you. You haven't created a scene over it. You haven't had too many hissy fits, at least in front of the kids.
Isn't it funny though, because you can be conflicted in pride and anger in these senses sometimes.
Absolutely.
Like, you could be really proud you're not drinking and angry that a venue hasn't got great drinks and all of that sort of stuff. So
absolutely.
You're allowed to have contradictory feelings. This is the other thing that we forget, that in life we have to feel one way or the other, and actually all human beings are contradictory. You only have to look at politics to know that. And that's perfectly okay to have really conflicting feelings about how you feel about stuff as well, because you want to be congratulated, but you're pleased not to have caused a scene.
Exactly that. And I think certainly for a good long while you do feel quite raw, and you do feel as if you're on some slightly odd roller coaster. it's really difficult to describe it. Some of the books do a good job of it. You know, Catherine Gray's book does a really good job of describing that.
I'm going to make sure that Lucy puts all the links to the books in this
great.
thing so that people can get hold of them. And we've got
cool.
them on our bookshop. So I love the fact that when you and me get together, Janey, I had to tell you, because the minute I sat down with you and you said, I've got this idea, I went, right, this is a point where neither you or me should be allowed to talk unsupervised, because I'm like you in the idea space.
I know.
You and me sat there and within 5 minutes we had a billion ideas.
Yeah, we just need somebody who can like come and implement them all. I am an ideas person.
So I'm really glad that you've got on with the podcast.
I know,
it's some great.
I would have talked about something like that, but I wouldn't have done it. And that's the difference. You know, the difference is now I actually do stuff. For years I've been offering, I do a little bit of media training sometimes for people who've got, it's often people with holistic businesses or brands or therapists or whatever, and they often want to get their message out there. So I do training with them, you know, bits of media training. And one of the things I tell everybody, you know, I'm always saying it, is, you know, you don't have to get it right, but you do have to get it going. You know, you've got to get it going. That procrastination thing that we all feel. But of course, while I was saying it, I was the biggest procrastinator of them all about everything. I had a million ideas, but I didn't do them.
And I went, again, not long after giving up drinking, I went to a lit fest, and one of the country's famous neurologists was being interviewed, and the interviewer said, oh, there's so many paths to go down, I don't know where to go. And she said, well, I find that when you're at a crossroads, just take all of the paths. And I thought, you know what, they're right, you know, because otherwise you'll sit and procrastinate. At least you can go some way down some of those paths and then realize whether something's right for you or not. And I think in your first 6 months, 12 months of sobriety, you should allow yourself to poke at lots of different paths of things that you want to try. It might be retaking up childhood drawing, you know, and you know, that may sound like you draw like a child, but you know, the drawing that you did as a young person, or some of those things. And it doesn't matter if they then don't become the hobby of all hobbies. What you've done is you've managed to distract yourself for a short time and see whether something was for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And writing is another big one for people. I really do believe in the therapeutic benefits of writing. You don't have to publish what you write, but you know, I think for many people, actually just physically, and I think with a paper and pen, by the way, not on a computer. I interviewed. What's that? How old am I?
Sorry, I don't understand what you're saying.
Paper and pen. What the hell?
None of these books are mine. I have, you know, none of them.
None of them, of course. Oh, what did you see that stuff this week about? Is it Marie Kondo?
Yeah, I'm with it.
What?
None of
30
these
books. Have you gone mad?
I've got less than 30.
You are joking me.
And then I could easily get rid of half of those as well. So.
Oh my goodness. You see,
digital.
I've
got 350 audiobooks.
So there is that. You see, one of the things I think, and I've just been talking about it on the podcast, that it's almost an act of self-care to declutter. But again, I find it very, very difficult. I really do. I'm a real overwhelmed kind of person. So I find decluttering hard. But back on the writing just for a minute, and you might not want to do a paper and pen, but it's good if you do. But I interviewed Julia Cameron. She's the most fabulous woman, Hay House author, because I'm a Hay House author and I present Hay House Radio. So I got the opportunity to interview Julia Cameron, incredible woman, author of a book called The Artist's Way, which was
I know
a
that
transformational book. I mean, multi
you don't have to be an artist to get lots from it.
Totally not. It's not actually the title is wrong. It shouldn't be called that. It should just actually be called
The Creative Way.
Exactly. And in a nutshell, what she says in that book is do your morning pages, as she calls them. So she says, before you do anything else, you know, grab yourself a cup of tea or whatever it is you want, and just get a piece of paper and write longhand, and just write. Don't edit your writing. Don't think about what you're going to write. Just spill your thoughts out, you know, stream of consciousness stuff. And it's really incredible what it can do. It can really unblock you if you've got creative blocks going on. It can just, I mean, so it might be as ridiculous as, I forgot to buy cat food or whatever it is, but it's amazing because it gets out of your head.
And you'll be amazed at what strengths that you have as an individual,
Yeah.
and that those strengths will get you through. So you talk about writing, creativity. I'm an activist by nature. So I got angry. I got angry about the fact that people don't want to come out about not drinking. I got angry about the poor level of support available for people like us. I got angry about the people who will charge you £1,000 for some wacky therapy to cure you, and there's no way of telling whether that actually works or not, or whether it's just fish oil or whatever. So
snake oil.
I got
snake
angry
oil.
and snake oil. Fish oil's good for you.
Fish
Snake
oil's
oil's bad for you. But and so that's where Club Soda came about, and you'll see that because we're different to like 1 Year No Beer. I see Andy's on the thing, and we're different slightly because of who I am, and 1 Year No Beers builds on Andy's strengths, and and so on. So and I feel that that's the festival is about that collaborative nature around creating something very visible and big so that everyone can plug in.
Making it really inclusive as well. That's what's really lovely about the festival. You're very welcome there if you're still drinking, or if you're thinking about drinking mindfully. And you're very welcome if you've just stopped, or if you're thinking about stopping, or if you've been stopped for 20 years. Oh, isn't it? Marion Keyes has just had a 25-year soberversary.
Cool.
Isn't that cool?
See if you can get her on your podcast. That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be great? That would be great.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Her Desert Island Discs was amazing, actually.
Was it?
She talked about it. Listen to it on the listen again on Desert Island Discs. But I want people to recognise that you've all got strengths. You use them every day in your work and everything else. And so maybe write them down and think about how those strengths will help you find what's next, regain your identity, and take this a bit further, whether you're cutting down or going alcohol free.
I think this whole thing of finding who you are again is a real kind of blessing that you don't expect. It's really interesting.
I will
find the person again.
I will share I did a blog post about reconnecting with my values, which I will post on this as well, just because of that. I feel like I am the person I was when I first moved to London in my early 20s, with all of that energy and zeal and wanting to change the world.
That's great. It's that thing that I was talking when I interviewed Catherine Gray, and I said to her, she was incredibly brave in that book, because she actually asked other people who knew her to write about what she was like before and what she's like now, and the fact that she's so much nicer. I mean, how brave is that to actually get someone
to... really brave.
Oh my goodness. But how amazing that she felt she'd uncovered that little doll beneath all the other dolls. And
absolutely.
It is amazing. And I think the other thing over a period of time is, we know about all your first birthday sober, your first whatever it is, meal out, or etc. But also it's all the little wins that I think it's really important to keep track of, because some of them are really, really, really tiny. For me, being able to go and pick up the kid. The first time I went to pick up my son, it was he called me and he needed a lift, and it was I don't know, about midnight or something. I mean, I wouldn't have. Oh well, I couldn't have done that. I don't think I've ever done that in all the years he's been going out. I just couldn't possibly have done that. Either my husband does it if he's around, or I put him in a cab, and it's a real little thing. But I was like punching the air, like, of course. It
was like me. I drove I got a zip car, so just got a zip car and went and brought a frozen yogurt in Soho at midnight.
Because you can.
Picked up the frozen yogurt.
That's very rock and roll. That's very rock and roll.
Obviously, I'm very rock and roll.
Lots of pop stars I remember being in the States with various bands. And we'd be in a studio, and it would be 2 a.m, and somebody would fancy a pizza, but it had to be a particular kind of pizza. So they would send a cab like 50 miles to get a particular pizza, or 100 miles. Bonkers, because you can.
Now you can get delivery to do it. But anyway,
I'm
going to leave it there, Janey. But I think I'd love to have you back, and we can talk about self-care a bit more. That would be really, really good.
That's the thing I'm really focusing on. So I'd love to hear anyone else's self-care tips, however big or small. And
it doesn't always have to be about spas and nails.
No, absolutely not.
I'm not that sort of girl particularly, although I do go to the steam room with Ali. But it's
I'm not either. I mean, my self-care top tip is walk by the sea. That's mine.
No, you're lying. Look, I can see your nails. They're like long.
No, they're so
and they're
not.
polished.
Yeah,
Look,
but it's
look at
chipping.
mine.
It's natural polish. Does that make it
I'm
any
even
better?
wearing Use's top. I'm not even dressed properly for a webinar. This would disgust people in America, wouldn't it?
Oh, well, I don't think either of us got the teeth or the hair for doing a podcast in the States, or doing a webinar in the States. I tell you something though, I really hope that I'm hoping that my podcast might have some listeners in the States, because I think they might like a British accent. Do you reckon?
I reckon.
You never know.
I
It'd be
think,
good, wouldn't it?
yeah, and I think our American members here like the British sense in some of this stuff. So
Yeah.
cool.
We
Everyone's
can
saying
laugh at
yes to
ourselves, right?
yeah. Everyone's saying yes to a self-care webinar. So that one's next,
Brilliant.
Janey.
Yeah,
All right.
definitely. Okay.
I'm going to leave it there. People
All
can
right.
carry on
Great to
asking
talk to you.
questions. Me and Janey will be around. All right.
Okay.
Bye.
Cool. Bye.